I had been a trauma surgeon aboard the Verity's Hand for 6 years before I understood what the ship was actually for. We carried beds, auto docks, 3 surgical suites, and a crew of 40 who mostly signed on, thinking they had joined a hospital. What we were really running was a switchboard. Earth keeps one frequency open across half the spinward arm, the open frequency accord, an old treaty almost nobody else bothered to ratify, because it cost something and promised nothing back. Any vessel, any species, any registered government or none at all, can broadcast a distress code on that band, and somebody on a human ship is required to answer. Not investigate, not forward it to a committee for review. Answer. Most of what came through was nothing. Old transponders, still cycling from wars no one remembered starting. Beacon glitches, static dressed up as a signal. Once or twice a year it was real. The week I am telling you about, it was a barge. Her name, as near as the translation matrix could render it, was the Hollow Tithe. She had been built to haul indentured labor for an outfit called the Cordage, a trade combine that leased workers the way other people lease cargo containers, and felt about as much for them. The crew, if you could call them that, were Yslen, chitinous, 4-armed, barely 1.5 meters standing, with a clicking dialect that didn't carry consonants the way ours do. The Cordage used them below decks on mining barges because Yslen hands could work in vacuum-adjacent cold that would kill most other registered species in minutes. When the ore vein the Hollow Tithe was working ran dry, the Cordage stripped her of anything resellable, logged her as lost with insurance, and left. The Yslen are not citizens of the Concordant Assembly. They never signed anything. No government claims them, which means no government is obligated to come looking when one of their ships goes dark. Our comms officer pulled the relay traffic afterward, out of curiosity more than duty, and found that 3 other vessels had crossed close enough to receive that beacon before we did. A Concordant customs cutter, a free trader, and a Cordage collection ship sent to confirm there was nothing left worth salvaging. All 3 had logged the signal. None of the 3 had answered it. The cutter's log gave a reason, at least. Unregistered hull, no treaty obligation, proceed. The trader and the Cordage ship hadn't bothered with reasons at all. Their distress code had been broadcasting for 11 days before it crossed our relay, and our comms officer told me later that the signal had a strange shape to it by the time it reached us. Not urgent, not pleading, just patient. Like whoever had built that beacon had stopped expecting an answer and kept transmitting anyway, out of habit, or stubbornness, or because doing nothing was worse. Captain Oyalaran read the intercept twice before she gave the order. I was in the wardroom when she did it, and I remember exactly what she said, because it was the least dramatic sentence I have ever heard attached to a decision that mattered. We don't get to decide who's worth answering. Set a course. That was the whole of it. No speech, no appeal to history or debt or principle. The accord said answer, so we answered, and we brought everything we had because nobody had told us yet how bad it would be. It was bad. We came up on the Hollow Tithe under hard daylight, the system's sun throwing long gold light across her hull, and even at that distance, you could see she was dying by inches. Patched hull plates, a drive section venting more heat than it should, running lights down to maybe 1 in 5. 211 Yslen were aboard a ship rated for 90. Atmosphere scrubbers were failing in sequence, oldest first, and they had been rationing breathable air by section for 9 days, sealing off compartments one at a time, and moving everyone into what was left. They had done the arithmetic on their own deaths, and were 3 days from the last room. We sent everything we had. Verity's Hand went in first with full medical capacity, and behind us came 2 transports, Calder's Reach and Low Water, both of them stripped for passenger capacity instead of cargo, because somebody on the relief board had looked at 211 souls and decided a single hospital ship answering alone would be an insult dressed up as help. We brought environmental engineers to rebuild their scrubbers properly instead of patching them, resettlement officers with standing offers of asylum already drafted, and enough ration packs and pressure tents to outlast any delay twice over. It was, by every metric the relief board uses, an absurd overcorrection for one dying barge nobody official had ever claimed. I went over with the first triage team. The foreman, an old Yslen named Cordage, met us at the lock. What passed for a lock? A hand-cut hole in the Tithe's side with a salvaged seal welded around it. Cordage had been keeping that ship alive on rationed air and pure stubbornness, and the first thing he did when our team came through was try to apologize for the state of his crew, as if 211 people, slowly suffocating in the dark, was a discourtesy he owed us an explanation for. I told him, through the matrix, that nobody here was counting discourtesies. He didn't seem to understand the sentence. I don't think anyone had ever said it to him before. We worked the tithe for 6 hours. Triage in the corridors. Full pressure restored compartment by compartment. The youngest Yslen carried out on stretchers built for a different body shape. Our medics learning on the fly how a Yslen's exoskeleton compresses under stress, and how much pressure their joints could actually bear before something cracked. None of it was clean or fast. A few of them we lost in the first hour regardless, despite everything, because some damage to a body that has been rationing its own air for 9 days cannot be undone just because help finally arrived. The worst of it came in the third hour, in the last sealed compartment, the one Cordage's people had been saving for themselves. Our environmental engineer found the scrubber there held together with salvaged wiring and a hand-carved wooden shim, of all things, jammed into a hairline crack in the housing that none of their tools could properly weld shut. It had been holding for 6 days. When she pried it loose to install the replacement unit, 20-some Yslen in that room went very still, watching her hands the way you watch someone defuse something, because for 6 days that shim had been the only thing standing between them and the vacuum. It held 1 second longer than it needed to. Then the new scrubber came online, and the room exhaled. Actually exhaled, all of them at once. A sound I will not forget. By the 6th hour, the hollow tithe was empty and dark, and we were ferrying her crew across open daylight to 3 ships that had more room than they needed, and meant to keep it that way. I remember standing on the Verity's hand reception deck afterward, watching the last of them brought aboard, blinking in real light for what might have been the first time in years. Cordage came through last, on his own feet, refusing the stretcher out of some last reserve of pride I understood completely. He stopped in front of me, looked up. Yslen are shorter than children's book aliens are supposed to be, and somehow that made him look older, not smaller, and said something in his own dialect, low and fast. 3 or 4 syllables clicked together too quickly for the matrix to catch cleanly. The translation came back as a string of low-confidence guesses, and a flat notice. Untranslatable. Dialect variant. Insufficient sample. I never did get a clean version of what he said. I asked our linguist about it weeks later, and she told me the matrix had logged 6 possible renderings, and discarded all of them as unreliable. It didn't matter. I had been standing close enough to see his face when he said it, and there are some things a translator cannot improve on, and does not need to. We filed the rescue as a standard accord response. 204 souls transferred, 7 lost in transit, asylum processing initiated for all survivors at the next relay station. It read, on paper, like every other entry in the log. It was not like every other entry. I have done this work for 11 years now, and I can tell you that most rescues blur together after a while, one daylight arrival folding into the next. I have never once forgotten the sound an old man makes when he finally believes, after 11 days of patient and uncomplaining transmitting into a silence he had stopped expecting to break, that someone was actually listening the whole time.